about. I think just the human condition, our set of circumstances in any given moment can be completely overwhelming. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
Hey, it's Troy Casey and Jimmy Franzo here for the Good Looking Boys Club. Is that what we're here for? We are back 1 year almost to the exact date. Last time we spoke with Jimmy had an artificial heart, and so since then he's had the transplant. And I recommend everybody go to last year's video to see what he had to say on death and dying. We covered that pretty in depth in that video, got a lot of views, and people enjoyed that. And so this year I wanted to cover, recently I was going through my own ups and downs, emotional issues, real traumatic time for myself emotionally. And I reached out to Jimmy because I figured, number one, what he's been through, he would have absolutely zero judgment about whatever I was going through, whatever was happening with me. And number two, that he was probably closer to God than anybody I know because of the fact that you had 11 hospitalizations in 28 months, you had 4 major surgeries, you had 14 months with the artificial heart, and you almost died multiple times from staph infections and adverse drug reactions, etc., etc. So, with that said, tell us what you've been through in the last year, and where you're at. It seems like you've had a new lease on life. You have tremendous wisdom. I've seen the stuff you've written on Facebook, and so share with the viewers where you're at after this 28-month ordeal.
Well, to justify or rationalize my, that's not what I wanted to say. To claim any real wisdom, man, it still makes me feel uncomfortable. I feel like in no way, shape, or form have I been graceful or dignified through this whole process, although I appreciate the assumption. I certainly have learned a lot. Anything that I've posted has been just an inspiration that's come from an emotionally charged moment. And I feel sometimes where Joseph Campbell says, share the thing, do the thing you can't not do. And that's it's been a really amazing, powerful experience for me. Yeah, what a difference a day makes, Troy. What a difference a year makes, Troy. I was thinking about this on my way over here. I had been staying with my sister, Tina, and Rob. I was a house guest. I was, last year when we did that interview, we were just a couple weeks out before the event to raise money. I was looking at a $250,000 in co-pays. And I was in it was a real humbling position to be in that set of circumstances where I was asking for help. Not a very comfortable place for me. Always battling with ego and pride and a false sense of myself. And here I was at my most vulnerable. And I think one of the most powerful things that I was ever forced to do and did was ask for help, because it's in that weakest moment that you find out how truly loved you are, how truly blessed you are with the amazing people around you. And just to be, again, on my way over here thinking to myself, a year ago I had that damn machine keeping me alive, that pump that had closed down, my heart. I didn't have a heartbeat for 14 months. I didn't know whether or not I was going to have the transplant. I didn't know whether or not I was going to get the call. So at every points during every day that, I was fighting that terror, trying to push that back, trying to turn that over to a God that I still don't understand, but see evidence of him working in my life every day.
So how did that feel on a day-to-day basis? I mean, I have my own issues. I have, anxiety or, relationship problems, stuff in my business that happens. However, you are facing your own mortality. And so, help the viewers understand what that's like to wake up every day, and maybe you have your own anxious thoughts about that stuff.
I don't know. I think it's a myth. I think trauma, I think pain, I think suffering, it is self-created for the vast majority of my own pain and suffering. It's a thought that I can't get out of my head, which causes me fear, and I get overcome in the moment. It doesn't matter what that is. Yeah, facing death and dying, and am I going to get a heart transplant? Am I not? Am I deserving? All those questions. Sure, that's a powerful, easy to wrap your head around. You can imagine that being powerful. But there are times in traffic where I lose my shit. There are times in traffic where I get so emotionally charged in the moment that I want to hit the gas and push everybody out of the way. I don't know what that's about. I think just the human condition. Our set of circumstances in any given moment can be completely overwhelming. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I have people in my life. There's a guy that I work out with in a gym. He was in the gym. He's horribly burned. Young man named Jesse. Absolutely incredible story. Makes my story look G-rated. I have examples of people like this in my life that have really gone through it. But I don't think
physically burned. He was in a.
He was actually drugged in New York City. And he was trying to make it home, and he was walking across in the underground and fell asleep across the train tracks and got electrocuted so bad that he's had 70 skin grafts. He's had his arm amputated 7 different times. He's just got basically a nub at his shoulder right now. He wears a prosthesis. He's a competition athlete, a very successful competition athlete and a motivational speaker, and just an amazing human. I'm surrounded by them. I'm sitting next to one. But at any given time, we're gonna be faced with something. Mine was the terror of wondering if I was gonna get a heart transplant. Yes, you Google everything when you have a particular condition, and I learned some pretty fascinating factoids about that 22 people die a day in America alone waiting for a heart transplant. That over 7,000 a year in America alone die of a heart transplant. That only
Really? 7,000 people die after they've gotten the transplant?
No. Waiting for a heart transplant. And hundreds of thousands for people die every year worldwide waiting for all sorts of organs. There's just not enough. In America, there's 37% of the available healthy donor candidates that are actually registered to be donors. That means that the vast majority aren't. And that's something I'm taking on personally, to bring that awareness up. And this is part of it right here.
Okay, so look, you've been quoted saying that trauma, pain, and suffering are all relative. You care to explain that a little bit deeper?
So you have your particular set of circumstances, and the way I think this is human nature in general, but I know the way I'm made, the way I'm wired. It's you feel separate, you feel kind of different, you feel unique in a way, which can make you feel very alone based on your set of circumstances. Obviously, we know what mine are, and then you have this. I had an incessant need to be understood. I had an incessant need to be, I was looking at people differently at times in my terror, that they just don't know how I'm suffering. So therefore, in a way, and then this isn't a conscious thing, it's more unconscious, but it's they aren't quite evolved enough to be sensitive enough to feel on a deeper level. And that's really not what it's about. I've learned that through a lot of blood and sweat. People aren't capable of understanding really anything to any degree other than their own set of circumstances. And I think, no matter how compassionate, no matter how empathetic we can attempt to be, no one can really know unless they're going through a very similar set of circumstances. Now, one of the things, I think the byproduct of my whole ordeal was that I'm a lot easier on people, and I have a lot lower expectations on people, because one of the things I found out to be true is that my mother, the closest people to me, no one was going to string a couple of well-formed sentences together and give me any real sense of comfort or sense of encouragement when I'm told on a Friday, because I have a staph infection, that they think in my spine, in the drive line of the machine that's keeping me alive, it's the third one that I'm having. My body's resistant to antibiotics, that it's Friday and I'm not going to make it till Monday. Who's going to come in and you're going to give me a hug at that point and I'm going to feel better? There's not much we can do for each other. So what I think I've learned, what I know I have a different perspective on, is the fact that in any given moment, something can feel completely overwhelming, and it's in that moment that I think we find God. I think in that moment we find not so much a love for ourselves, but a surrender to the fact that this is out of my control. This is out of my hands, and there's such freedom in that. I've been there, any number of times.
So would you say the finding of the God is more of a surrendering as opposed to coming to the realization, oh, there's God?
Yeah, my own personal experience is I haven't arrived anywhere because of any virtue. I have arrived everywhere in my life. I laugh because I'm basically the process of elimination. I'm the last resort. I try it my way. I get suggestions from people. I still try it my way. I fall flat on my face. I'm bloody, I'm beaten, and then I surrender, and then it's in that moment. In that moment of surrender is when I feel most alive and most carried and most humbled. And I love to be humbled. I love to feel like, whenever we see and feel God, whatever that can be in a child and being pushed in a stroller right by you on the beach walk, That can be your mother's voice. That can be your child's voice, Spending time with little Troy today, I mean, it reminds me of my two sons when they were young, when their voices were sweet, now they're men, and it's an innocence and it's a beauty, and you either surrender to that or you don't.
Right.
But in surrender, you truly experience something, I think.
And so would you say, you hear all these isms about God and finding God and giving it up to God and walking with God and allowing God in your life, et cetera, et cetera. So would you say that having to come to these points of surrender multiple times helps you keep yourself in the awareness of surrender on a regular and constant basis? Would you say all the trauma has helped delivered you to a state of surrender more often and an easy state to return to, if you will?
I would say easier, absolutely. I would say that I'm fresh off easily the most trying challenge and overwhelming circumstance of my 50 some odd years, and so it's easier for me to, it's smoother transition for me to go from, because I feel myself resisting whatever the truth is in the moment that I don't want to face. It could be a stack of bills. It could be whatever. And then it's like, it's in the opening them one at a time that I realize, oh, this isn't so bad. It is what it is. I have some debt collectors that call me, and I have fun with them now. I'm become very playful, and I think I manage them much better than when I would see a block number or an 800 number coming, and I would just I would be like, I would cringe. And now it's like, hey, it's get in line. I love you, but it's like, I know I owe you guys a tremendous amount of money. I mean, just. Are
you talking about for the hospital bills and stuff like that?
That's exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about.
And how much? Share with the viewers how much debt or what was created. What kind of price are we putting on this heart transplant and the artificial heart?
Well, it can be deceiving. I was very sick and had a number of surgeries beforehand. So it was my insurance paid $2.6 million before my heart transplant. The actual transplant itself and the aftercare medication since have been about $600,000 to $800,000. Probably $200,000 of that has been medication along the whole journey. But I had a tremendous amount of complications. I was hospitalized 11 times for over 200 and something days. That's and Cedar Sinai is
not cheap.
That's a good way to put it.
So well, how do you feel right now? I mean, you look great. Every time I talk to you, your spirit's always high. So, is that deceiving? I mean, you seem like good old Jimmy Franzo.
I feel like
I am.
I feel like
surprise.
It's such a loaded question. How do I feel? It's interesting that because you're asking me that question. I go right to how do I feel physiologically? I mean, who really cares? I mean, I feel great. I know a few things about my donor. I know that my donor was 8.5 years younger than me. I know that he was killed with a head injury. I know that he kept 6 other people alive with his organs. I know that I don't know his heritage. I don't know anything about him.
Do you feel him like the other people in the movies and stuff? Do you feel? Have you had any experiences? I mean, you got his heart, which is probably one of the top organs next to the brain. So, have you felt him?
I can't say that I've had any kind of new concept that I'm more accepting of. Anything that I know that I've let go of certain judgments. I imagine I'm not saying I necessarily feel this in a powerful way, but I imagine he was a good man and a kind man simply because he was a donor. I know that because of this gift that I have as a result of him living and dying has connected me, this is very difficult to explain, in a way to all human beings, all life. God, it sounds so ethereal. I'm not Joe Spiritual, and the truth of the matter is, if I had any understanding of love, if I had any understanding of God, it's more clear to me today than it ever has been. I still won't claim to understand it. I'm not going to tell you that I feel his personality. I'm not going to say that I've had dreams where he's included in them. I can say that when some of the highlights of my life, oftentimes with my mother or my sons or a close friend, and I think to myself, I guess the best way to put it into words would be if not for his gift, if not for his sacrifice. And at that point, I don't feel any separate from him. Mm-hmm. I feel that almost as if I know that he's gone on to the next spiritual plane of existence, wherever that may be. Some call it heaven. I know that a part of him, and I'm not just speaking the physical part of his heart that's here, but I know that there's such an expression of love that lives inside my chest that I feel him in that way, if that makes any sense. I'm only now making sense of it.
Right. And how many months has it been?
Yesterday was 10 months.
Wow. And so has your life gone back to any kind of normal?
I don't think I was ever normal. So, or any by any stretch of the imagination. I know that I can say that I've struggled my whole life with self-absorption and a heightened sense of self-centeredness, and I know that it's much easier for me today to think about myself less. I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. I live right by a metro station, so it's very, a couple times a day sometimes when I'm driving around a lot, I get to a crosswalk where there'll be 30 to 100 people crossing the walk at the same time. And I can guarantee you that not nearly half of them, when the light turns green, are through the intersection. And that used to be something that would get under my skin. And today, I feel like I'm more prepared for it. And I feel like, and it's not so much that would annoy me where it used to, but it's now that one guy, that one guy or that one girl that picks up his pace a little bit because he knows he wants to get out of your way, and that'll make my whole day. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but it's like I just feel like my life is if I didn't like the normal that it was. I mean, I loved it. I would have told you then, but it's just better now. It's easier. It's lighter. I laugh a lot more. I cry a lot more at trivial from another perspective could seem like really small stuff, I mean, I'm moved by the simplest things. I think I always have been. I think I'm a pretty simple guy. Mm-hmm. I think that this whole experience has taught me how truly connected and how truly simple that life is, and we complicate it, man. We complicate it. I mean, we complicate it.
Simplicity. Ooh, those are wise words. I mean, the elders that I've studied with, they've always stressed simplicity. Nature is simple, etc., etc. Go with the flow. That's simplicity. So if you could say something to your donor, if he was standing in front of you, what would you say?
Oh, wow.
You can look right in the camera.
I wouldn't say anything. I'd give him one of my hugs. I'd hold him really close to me. I don't think words would touch it.
Yeah, well, you got good hugs. You got good hugs as well. And so, do you feel like you have a new lease on life? Do you wake up every day with that?
That's an interesting question. I was.
Or let me rephrase that as well. Do you feel that you have a new lease on life, and any anxious thoughts that maybe you had in the past, or worry about bills, or worry about relationships or business, those are overridden because you have been given a new lease on life?
Wow, what a fascinating question. So one of my best friends, very recently, less than a month ago, he and his beautiful wife had a child. And I remember he was having a moment, a couple months before, and shared some of his, repetitive thoughts, which are what our fears are, basically.
Right.
And he reached out to me, and I told him something that was my experience, and I told him something that is the answer to your question right now. I said, when this child is born, all your fears, when you hold this child for the first time, her name is Angel Valencia Donovan. She's like literally the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Everyone says that about babies, but there's something special in her eyes. So you can hold this child for the very first time, and every fear you ever had, Jason is his name, about, am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to be able to provide? Is she going to be safe? Am I going to be able to keep her safe? Everything that surrounds being a father for the first time is going to go away. And your life, against your will, is going to be reprioritized. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time that Jojo, when he was born, and then the first time I touched him, it was like somebody had come and literally, I carried so much bullshit around with me that you needed to excavate out of me some things and just put in a calm that said, no worries, it's all good. I mean, I got my girl there in the hospital bed, I'm holding him, and what the fuck else matters?
Right.
So it's I wouldn't say I don't have any worries. I know that my life, when I said it's so much lighter, I know that whatever comes up, and something came up yesterday, I won't go into it, it would take too long, but something came up, and I thought to myself, it's easy to me. Anybody that'll tell you that has a practice of meditation in the morning, and they're able to achieve that quiet and that peace in the morning, that's where they return to as their day gets stressful. I connect in the morning spiritually. It's the first thing that I do, but I'm also connected on a level because I'm here based on, yes, originally I was here by grace and felt chosen, but this is a whole new level of that for me. In the most humble way I say that. Not like I'm special that I got this hard, because I don't think that I could ever come close to being deserving. But that at the same time, what am I going to stress about?
So it's been a prioritizing. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
So
against my will, it's kind of like
things that would have normally stressed you out,
yeah,
pale in comparison of the gift you've been given.
Sure.
And you can let it go and surrender. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, in that transition, that transformation of the perspective shift happens in fraction of the time that it used to, because I'm less resistant.
Less resistant. I've heard this before. The flow of nature, and so And boy, oh boy, can I get caught up in resistance myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So, one of my mentors I'm studying with right now, a writing mentor, he said that in alchemy, you've got the truth of where you're at, the love of where you want to be, and that creates tension, and through that tension, the lead turns into gold, which is called wisdom. This is the alchemical triangle, or Neoplatonic philosophy. It's what Bach and Beethoven and Newton and all the philosophers before our time, that's what they were educated in. And so, and stress comes from the resistance of the tension. There's always tension of where you're at and where you want to be, but it's the resisting of that tension is what's caused stress. And I thought that was very important. And so if you're not going to stress and you're going to honor the tension, then that's a surrender, a release, and an observation. Is the philosophical ideal, I gleaned off of that situation. And I've been going through my own troubles and trials and tribulations and troubles and et cetera. And so I'm very interested in your process because your process seems more abject. However, I think you said that, the pain and suffering are relative. I think everybody's going through it. Okay. So one question I had for you, you were on the waiting list for 2 years to get your heart, and then you got kicked off that waiting list. How did you feel, and what was going through your head then?
You could have skipped this question if you wanted to. No, this is not something I'm proud of, but it's not something I'm ashamed of. I've had my bouts with opiate addiction. Many years ago, heroin, and
for how long? How many years?
I struggled with that for the tail end of the '90s when I was in Miami in the club business, and all the way up until mid to end of 2006, 7, almost. Yeah, that's when I started getting it together and started making my way back, but. After 1 or 2 or 3 of the surgeries and getting opiates prescribed to me and Dilaudid, which is synthetic heroin,
which is supposed to be the glory land.
Yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, I like it.
It was in Drugstore Cowboy too.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 10 times, 20 times stronger than morphine. Anyways, I was taking that in the hospital for about 5 weeks after a surgery. This is when they implanted my artificial heart. They open you up. That was an interesting process. That particular surgery actually woke up from the anesthesia. I was so out of it that I wasn't really in any fear, but I saw the aluminum spreaders and I was watching my lungs work and I was watching this titanium and aluminum, keeping me alive. And anyway, the long and short of it is I'm tap dancing around the issue now, Troy, is that when I got home, I was abusing the pain medications, severely abusing them. I was going through a month's supply in a matter of days and less than a week. And in a moment of virtue, I got honest with my transplant coordinators, and they had called me in because I was getting finally prepped. I was at the very top of the list. This is about 6 months before my actual transplant. And then when I told them that I was abusing the medications, I thought they were going to somehow reward me for my honesty. That's not what happened. That's a whole nother issue, but they don't have any real understanding of addiction. They don't have any real understanding of anything other than you can't be, I figured they would detox me and then I would go right back to the top of the list. What happened is they told me that you're going to be off the list and permanently, and we can't give you a heart through, you're not a good investment, which made perfect sense to me, but that was a whole nother level of depression and despair. And what happened for me was
that's intense, man.
The good news is that having dealt with these transplant coordinators, which are on the whole nothing short of angels. They're wonderful people. You can imagine how incredibly sensitive and amazing they have to be to deal with what they deal with on a daily basis. And after a couple of I sobered up immediately. I went to a detox. They had to train somebody on my apparatus. It's called Tarzana. And I detoxed for a couple of weeks, and then went back to my sister's house, Tina's house, and was recovering there and stayed clean. And after about 4 months, one of the doctors and the potential heart transplant surgeon saw me in my regular clinic appointment. I had another infection, and I was hospitalized again, and I refused opiates a couple of times. Wasn't going to play with that. I knew they told me I would never be on the list again.
So let's go back. You were off the list. They took you off the list, but you decided to detox and do what you could anyhow?
I figured if I had a shot, if I had a chance, if protocol was going to change, if they were going to make an exception to the rule, I had to do that as a clear-eyed, sober guy.
Right.
I needed to be off the drugs. I mean, I had no chance. It was either that or die. Right.
And the fact of the matter is you faced death, multiple times. You were told to die in the beginning, and you said no, right? And that's when you got the transplant team. You got a second opinion, right? And then you had staph infections multiple times with the artificial heart, and then you got kicked off you waited a long time, 2 years, and then you got kicked off the waiting list of that, and then you figured, I still don't want to die, and you were like, then you detoxed yourself to get yourself in a position for them to possibly say yes, even though you were kicked off. That summarizes what you were saying. And then okay, so pick it back up. So then what happened?
I was in one of my weekly, because every Thursday I would have my clinic appointment where they check the device and service the device and check your meds and blood tests and all the rest of it. And it seemed kind of futile, for 4 months of weekly of doing this. But what had happened in that 4 months is I had made a transformation physically, and lights were back on, obviously, and I decided to do what my body knows what to do, which is go to the gym. And my Dr. Kubashigawa had come to me and said, you look amazing. And he goes, I know that's taken a lot of hard work. And he says, I just want to let you know that we go to bat for you every Friday. They have a meeting, and they present cases for a transplant. And
wow.
And we're not giving up. And from what I could put together, I was being unanimously voted down each time. And then somehow, miraculously, and I say this because I had nothing to do with this, the very following week, I was told that they had passed me through and put me back on the list. Now, what happened was, and no one was aware of this at the time, but when I went back on the list, there was...
What happened was, God came down and did a little reconfiguration around there.
It feels like that. And what had happened was there was all these red flags in my particular file based on the fact that if I hadn't abused opiates and been thrown off, so just take that little factoid and put it aside for a moment for the sake of this conversation, they saw all these infections, all these near-death experiences based on my apparatus failing, and they thought you have to be put first on the list. So I jumped from B status to 1A status to 1A1, meaning I'm the very next one, and I got the call within 9 days of being put back on the list.
Wow.
Yeah. Whoa, my hair's standing on end. Wow. Yeah, that was quite a call.
So I know you're Italian, but do you feel the luck of the Irish?
I don't know. I never felt particularly lucky,
But I mean, you made it through all that. I mean, that's a good 5 or so death sentences, near-death experience. You
got to know though, because you know me well. It's there are plenty of reasons for me to. I've done this my whole life. I can somehow take credit for something that's not of me. And this whole set of circumstances, I've been in it, but it's like I feel like someone put me on a ride I didn't want to get on, and they basically let me get off the ride. And looking back while I was on the ride, it was the most frightening thing I've ever gone through. I would look at that particular ride, never go near it again the rest of my life. Now, from the perspective where I sit today, I wouldn't change one aspect of the whole experience. I'm grateful for all of it, all the nights that I couldn't sleep, and all the pain, and all the crazy, the confusion, and the fear, and all the rest of it. It's kind of purified something in me with fire and burnt away a lot of bullshit that I was carrying around I don't need. You know, it's so much easier for me to connect with everything that I love, and it's so much easier for me today, Troy, to listen to that little voice inside that says, whatever it is, I was on my way here, I got into traffic. Rather than make a big deal about traffic, I called a couple people in my life that are going through some difficult situations. Why? Because I have time, because I'm in traffic, right? And I don't say that to pat myself on the back because I'm so wonderful, although you need to know that I am. I say that because it gives me such a sense of you know what, it's listening. It's like, oh, you know, she could use to hear your voice right now. And I don't say anything brilliant. I just basically, you know, I'm here for you. I'm thinking about you. How's it going with that situation? Or simply, I love you. You know, it's much easier to get there, and my life is so much more fulfilling thinking about others more and myself less.
So it sounds like the process allowed you to just, well, you said it before, simplify and really let go of all the stuff that really doesn't matter. Maybe a little anxious talk in our head or stressful elements, but it's so much easier to let that go.
Somebody recently said to me, and I don't think it was unique to him. I don't think he invented this saying, but it was so brilliant. He said, we're not responsible for the things that we think, but we're responsible for how long we think about them.
Yes.
And that, to me, is pretty much, in a nutshell, whatever I've been given from this whole set of circumstances for me is simply, you know, don't trip.
Right.
You know, don't trip. It's going to work itself out. What footwork do I need to do? In other words, I go from the problem to the solution exponentially faster now.
Right. Well, that makes sense because I've been studying this myself, and I've had spiritual advisors, and I've had advice from you as well. And they say, give it up to God. And you know, the thoughts. Deepak Chopra says we have 92,000 thoughts, and a high percentage of them we thought yesterday and the day before that, and so and a high percentage of them are negative, and you thought them yesterday, etc. And so a lot of this has to do with subconscious programming or just thoughts that are in the idea sphere. They're just in the ethers. But what we pay attention to and what we give attention to as well. You know, it's the positive and the negative. Napoleon Hill says this in his black and white movies that you can find on YouTube. You know, in this one hand is all the riches and the gold and the good experiences, and on the other hand is, in the other envelope, is destitution, pain, anguish, etc. And so it all just comes down to choice and what you feed your thoughts and your mind and what you focus on. And so that's great. That's great wisdom. So what are some parting words that you'd like to share? What are just some golden nuggets that you want everybody to know because of your experience? I mean, again, you faced death, you know, multiple times, and in a big way. It wasn't just a wimpy way. It wasn't just like, oh God, help me a little bit, please. You know, it was like multiple times. You're like, okay, you're gonna die, and this isn't gonna work, and you're toast. And you said, that's not my choice. So, what is it that you want to tell the world out in cyberspace?
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I had to let people in. I had to let people know what I was feeling. I had to let know people how fearful I was, what I was thinking. And it's in that letting them in letting them be there for me, that it was a choice to be vulnerable. And I think that's where I found any strength that I'll ever claim. It's in the vulnerability. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy going through something, and whoever it is in front of me at a given time, I need you. I need your arms around me. I need your ear. I need you to sit next to me in my hospital room, whatever it is. And I think inversely, if I were to leave the audience, you guys, with something powerful, I'd have to say that It's in the giving to me today. For me today, it's in the giving that I lose my perspective of what I need. Because it's in the giving that I feel that it leaves a void that only whatever concept I have of God, which is love, comes in and it's nude. That's the whole cycle for me. I check myself a couple times during the day. What did I put out? If I'm at all off my center, or if I'm at all feel like I'm lacking or I'm missing something, it's because every time it's because I'm not giving out. Because it's this thing. I'm always hungry. There's never enough love. There's never enough recognition. There's never enough affection. There's never enough. But if I'm giving that, it seems like I don't want for it.
And there's the old spiritual adage: to give is to receive. And so, but you're living that.
It's come to this. I love it. Grandma taught us that, right?
Oh man, that's great. Well, where can people find out more information about you? Where's the best place to connect with you, Jimmy?
Oh man, James Franzo on Facebook. That's pretty much it. My email address is franzo777@gmail.com, and I'll get to it and ask me anything. I'm here for you.
That's great. And so scroll back on some of his pictures and stuff. You did some really cool writings, and so I hope you're writing a book.
Thank you.
Getting out there. And I look forward to doing workshops with Jimmy. Get him up there, motivational speaking, inspiring the people. And so thank you so much.